Hello everybody and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic, hope you're doing well, and today I'll be doing a retro review of The Amazing Spider-Man 2, starring Andrew Garfield. My wife and I were able to watch this and finish it over the last couple of days, so we finished this last night, and yeah, it went about as I had expected. As far as her reaction is concerned, especially to the performances and appearances by people like Jamie Foxx, which still to this day bring about a lot of cringe. But before going any further, though, please make sure you smash that like button, light up that fire button if you're watching over on Odyssey, and also make sure that you are subscribed to the channel with that bell notification on. That way you know every time a video or live stream goes live on the channel. So this second film from Mark Webb, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, of course, is remembered as being one of the worst Spider-Man films of all time. Obviously, this is up there with the Spider-Man 3 film from Sam Raimi. Obviously, that film is well known for not being very good. This film, not known for being very good. And I know that a lot of people would argue that some of the Tom Holland films fit into that same category, but I really do think that this film kind of stands out, especially amongst the rest, because of its portrayal of characters like Electro, and because of its portrayal of characters even like Harry Osborn and the Green Goblin and other things that just either one, don't make any sense, or two, just bring about some of the most hammy, cringeworthy performances that we have seen. And that really doesn't change much as far as between these two films. I think my favorite role, though, in this entire film, and really in this entire franchise, still to this day, is Paul Giamatti. I mean, let's just be honest here. Paul Giamatti's performance in this film is just downright amazing. You might have thought I was about to say terrible. No, it's downright amazing. Him playing, a Russian mobster who ends up becoming Rhino. I mean, come on. It's one of the best performances in the film. It had me laughing. I remember when I saw this film in theaters, back in 2014, I remember seeing it and just laughing so hard because I could not believe that Paul Giamatti was, one, in the film, and then two, that he was giving such a terrible performance. And so let's just talk a little bit about, again, some of the good and the bad things. So once again, I think that the strongest part of this film is the acting of some of the good actors in the film, because there is good acting, or rather there are good actors in this film would be a more accurate statement. Andrew Garfield, still a good actor, especially with all of the emotional beats. When it comes to the death of Gwen Stacy, for instance, he is giving it. And again, I think that this really helps people especially be able to make a connection and make a bridge to Spider-Man No Way Home, where a lot of people were just blown away by how talented all three of the actors that portray Spider-Man, truly are. I mean, Tobey Maguire gives such great performance in No Way Home. Andrew Garfield, I would argue, gives the best of the acting performances of the three. And then Tom Holland is a talented actor as well. And I've mentioned this in a previous video. I think that the problem with Tom Holland is that he's kind of shoehorned himself into this mainstream persona, right? Because he kind of just got big and got started with Spider-Man, whereas people like Andrew Garfield got started in more independent films. I think back to films like The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus. When you look at Tobey Maguire, I mean, obviously, for him, Spider-Man was kind of his jumping off point too. But since that point, he has gone on to do not just big budget films and not just big name films, but also has tried his work at, some more independent films and some smaller roles. And so I'm hoping that happens as well with Tom Holland, because I think that he really kind of needs that. I don't think him going in the direction of things such as the Uncharted franchise is actually going to be good for him as far as just his acting prowess, because I think it's just going to take away from the talent that he actually has. But getting back to this film, Andrew Garfield, again, just gives a great performance as far as an acting. Now, whether or not it's a good Peter Parker or whether or not it's a good Spider-Man, I think that this kind of goes back to my comments from the original film, which is that in the original film, or rather in the first Amazing Spider-Man, he was just a very unlikable character. And I heard some people mention that, oh, well, that's how he was in the comics, and that's how he reacted to being bullied and things like that. And again, that all might be true. I've mentioned before that I'm not a comics guy, but I am a movie guy. And at the end of the day, your hero needs to be likable. If we're going to be behind your hero, if we're going to be behind the hero that we see on screen, there needs to be a likability factor to it. And besides Andrew Garfield having natural charisma that makes him likable, the actual character, I know, River, I know. She gets crazy every single time I talk about this film or I talk about Andrew Garfield, because she's a big fan. She's a big fan of his performances. But at the end of the day, that is what we have to be able to remember, is that you have to have a likable character in order for the movie to be able to work. I think that in this film, you definitely have River. I know. I get it. And we are back. Sorry about that. Had to calm down the pups for a little bit. But as I had been saying, you need to have a likable character. And when it comes to this film, I think that there's a much stronger likability to the character being portrayed by Andrew Garfield versus what we got in the first film. And in the end, I think that definitely helps it. But whether or not it's a good Peter Parker performance or Spider-Man performance, I think that's just going to be preference, and that's going to be, kind of different depending on who you ask. For me, I thought it was okay. I don't think it's as bad as a lot of the other people who are critical of this era of the Spider-Man franchise are. But at the end of the day, I also recognize the talent that Andrew Garfield has just as an actor in a general sense. You also have people like Emma Stone, who, again, I think she's talented as well. And I think that she does a fine job as Gwen Stacy as far as an acting role, whether or not it's a actual Gwen Stacy performance or whether she, fits the character or not. Again, that's beyond me, but she gives good acting. But then we have some not so good acting in the film. We have Jamie Foxx, who just gives one of the cringiest performances, I think, in the entire history of the Spider-Man films. I mean, it kind of like, Topher Grace level of cringe, where it's just not good. Whether it's the playing of the bumbling fool, whether it is the actual, and this goes beyond his performance too, like the characterization of Electro, the fact that when he eventually is going through his transformation, what happens? The gap in his teeth gets fixed because of the electricity. Like, just small things like that. You're like, man, this is not very good. And I'm very happy that No Way Home kind of, played with that and kind of made fun of that very fact, because it really deserved to be made fun of because of it. Then you also have Dane DeHaan in this film, and this one really kind of hurt me because Dane DeHaan is a really talented actor. And you can really see this, especially when you look at the film that kind of put him on the map, which is Chronicle from 2012. The reason why he got this role is very likely because of not only the performance he gave at Chronicle, but the reception that he got for his performance in Chronicle. And so to see him be given the script and to be given the direction that he was given for this role was just really, really sad, because I don't think that it really was the actor's fault, because, again, we've seen him be able to give a good performance, and it really comes down and back to the writers, and it comes back to the directors. Now, I know that some people are trying to say, well, you just got to watch the extended scenes, and this is not really the vision that Mark Webb had, and that all could be true, but this is the footage we have. Mark Webb was still the director, and even though you do have Alex Kurtzman involved with it, which, hey, makes sense as to why the film sucked as far as a writing perspective is concerned. You have Avi Arad as a producer, so again, all of that totally makes sense. You still have Mark Webb as a director. His name is still attached to it, and that means that he did direct the actors in the scenes that they were in. Whether or not it was his vision or not, the fact still remains is that he is the one that could have said, hey, that was a really bad line delivery, or hey, that is not really kind of the character that we're going with. And so ultimately, it comes down to them. Because again, I think Dane DeHaan is a talented actor, but the performance he gives in this, especially as he's going through the Green Goblin transformation and all that kind of stuff, and also the way the writing is concerned. So again, shout out to Kurtzman for screwing this up. His transition from, being a good person to hating Spider-Man is so abrupt and is so stupid that only the likes of Kurtzman could possibly come up with it. So the writing for this film is absolutely atrocious. But you do, again, as I said, have good performances from people like Andrew Garfield, like Emma Stone, and of course, Paul Giamatti as well, because come on. Greatest performance ever given on screen, but also Sally Field. Sally Field gives some pretty good performances too. I love the like for instance, there's a scene I actually really enjoy, and it's a sequence between her and Peter Parker where he's trying to find out more about his past. He's trying to find out about his parents, and she's like, "I raised you. You're my boy." And it's just such a powerful scene, and you just think to yourself, "Wow, this scene has no place in this film. This scene." And the acting prowess being shown by both her and Garfield, just, it's not right for this movie. It should have existed in a much better film, and it just makes you think, what would have happened if we had gotten a film without Kurtzman? If we had gotten a film where Mark Webb maybe did have actual full creative control of it, or if we had another director, a better director. Someone mentioned that it was his directorial debut or his first big movie in the first film, meaning that this was his second big movie. What if we had a more polished director take over this franchise and be able to maybe have more control and more power in the decision-making process. I think that we would have gotten a better film overall, but I am still happy to have rewatched this film. It does remind us of a lot of things, right? It reminds us that there was supposed to be a Sinister Six spin-off, but that obviously fell to crap because this film was just a failure, in so many ways. What's interesting about it, though, is that if you actually look to these numbers, right, the $200 to $293 million production budget, the film, technically broke even. I mean, we've seen films that have lost a lot more money that have continued on their franchises. So I do think it's interesting that this film kind of got the kibosh, even though it wasn't the worst film in the world. Obviously, they were looking at the trends and they were seeing that it wasn't really resonating with fans and it wasn't doing as well as the previous films had done. So, there was obviously something that they had noticed from this to kind of, quash all of the future plans for it. And obviously, I do think that they were able to, rebuild this and create a much better, I guess, more palpable, making more sense, better, better directed, much better as far as the, much better constructed stories in the Tom Holland era. And again, some people might not like to hear that because they don't like the Tom Holland era. They don't like the Tom Holland portrayal of Spider-Man. But I have to say that, and I think anyone, if they're going to be honest, is going to say, if you look at these films, the Amazing Spider-Man films versus the Tom Holland era Spider-Man films, you'll have to admit that even though you may not like the certain portrayals of characters and things of that nature, that the stories are much better and much tighter in the Tom Holland era, whereas these are just a giant mess. And I think that that is something that this, unfortunately, this franchise is going to be remembered for, but it also is going to be remembered for Andrew Garfield. And I think that the redemption arc that Garfield goes through as an actor and as a Spider-Man in No Way Home really makes these films a lot better in my mind. Again, it's not that the films become automatically good films. It's that you appreciate what these films establish because it helps you, especially what's established in this film with the tragedy of Gwen Stacy. It's what helps you understand the emotional arc that happens in No Way Home. And so that's why I'm excited to, now that we've watched these films, go back to watching No Way Home, now that my wife will have a little bit more context about the characters that she's going to see from the villains from his era, but then also just, again, Garfield and his performance and some of the things that he mentions. I think that, and because she's already a Garfield fan, but even she's, again, she gave kind of that note throughout saying, man, he's just not likable. And I think that's a very good point. And I think that's a very good thing to bring up. And also, man, that just wasn't a good film. So she clearly understood that the first film was, decent. She was like, it was okay. And then this film just really, did not hold up to stuff either. So overall, if I had to give this film a grade, obviously I gave the first film a C+. I'm going to have to give this film a D+. The story really is just that bad. It does have good acting performances from people like Garfield and even Emma Stone and Sally Field. And of course, the impeccable Paul Giamatti. I mean, come on, that's just best performance of all time. But in the end, this is it's a sad film. It's a sad franchise because Garfield, I think, really could have done an amazing job if he had been given a good script, if he had been given the right director to help him, kind of nail down that characterization. And unfortunately, that's just not able to happen. But what are y'all's thoughts? Let me know in the comment section down below. Do you remember the Amazing Spider-Man films? Have you seen either of them? Were you a fan of this one? Is this one that you're actually, hey, no, I like this film and I respect this film? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you like this video, smash that like button, loud that fire button on Odyssey. Y'all all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless. Before going any further, I wanted to give a very, very huge special shout out to one of my Valkyries, one of my longtime supporters, Tina B, the Empress of the Universe. Thank you so much for being a supporter and for being a mod on this channel. And now for a huge special shout out to all of my members who are at the Keeper of the Bifrost level and above on Patreon, Subscribestar, and Locals. So first on Patreon, Brandon, let's go Brandon, Christopher Bowman, Garrett Searles, Hymir Irie Hymason, Jacob from Holland, Jacob Juice, who you can check out on his Letterboxd. Jacob Juice is how you can find it. Jeffrey Toon, Joey Horn, Jonathan Carney, Laura, the Modern Major General Story, Mad Mike Jackson, Special shout out for him in a second. Mad Mitch Dunaway, Orange Hat Reviews, you can check out his channel, Orange Hat Reviews. Rosetta Allen, you can check out her channel as well. Stan Andrian, and Miss Martin Muses, who also has a YouTube channel. And a special shout out, as I mentioned, to Jacob Juice from Holland. Again, letterboxd.com/Jacob Juice for more information about him. And a special shout out to my members over on Subscribestar, Matt 317, Storm Tracker, The R, Fast Reaction, Mr. Roy, and a huge shout out to my newest Chosen of Valhalla member, Luka Illich. J-Rod, the Beer Guru, and ZK-Man. Thank y'all very much for supporting on Subscribestar. And to two of the members who are supporting me over on Locals, who asked for special shout-outs. First off, Minnesota hockey fan. Let's go. Let's get a hockey player. And UAB, Mad Dog, Mike Jackson for the win. Thank you very much for supporting me, and also Robert Barnes on Locals as well. Anyway, if you want a special shout-out, and Brett D90 for that matter, if you want a special shout-out at the end of every single video, please check out that top link at the very top of the video description. It'll give you more information about the different tiers and what you get every single month. Thank you guys for your love, for your patience, for this month's shout-out video as well. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, God bless.